testing is done. And with the first race just round the corner, round 1 in Bahrain, I thought I'd go through and highlight the key takeaways, or at least my key takeaways, from this season's F1 testing. First off, the amount of laps completed. There they all are. Obviously of note is AlphaTauri completing 456 laps, with 246 of those being done by Nick de Vries. Very impressive for the young rookie, or not so young. I mean, he's 28. So anyway, the real surprise from that list is of course McLaren, down way at the bottom, with only 333 laps completed, more so being done by Oscar. McLaren had troubling testing similar to last year. It was brake issues, although last year was cooling. This year is the brake brow, sort of the wheel brow that's over the top of the wheel at the front of the car. They had to keep on reinforcing it and repairing it, reinforcing it and repairing it. They were just really struggling, and pace-wise, they didn't seem to be all there either. So yeah, tough time for the Papaya team. When it comes to lap times, it was actually Sergio Perez that topped the tables, setting the fastest lap of the test on day 3, a 1 minute 30.305. In fact, the top 9 times were all set on the final day of testing. Again, Sergio Perez in that top spot, Lewis Hamilton in P2 with a 1:30.664, and Valtteri Bottas, an impressive run in the Alfa Romeo with a 1:30.827. Overall then, if we compare those timings for last year for each of the teams' quickest time, we can see a couple of gains and whatnot compared to where everyone was last year. Williams appear to have gained the most amount of time, going 2.3 seconds faster than they did last year in last year's test. Aston Martin not far behind them, again 2.3, 7.1 versus 7.8. Alfa Romeo then 2.1, then Mercedes 2, AlphaTauri 1.7, Red Bull 1.4, Ferrari 1.3, McLaren just over a second faster, Haas just under a second faster, Alpine actually going slower than they did last year. Who's top of the tables then, and who needs to improve come the end of testing? Well, to no one's surprise, it's Red Bull at the top for sure. Their running was just so smooth across the 3 days of testing. They didn't seem to really put a foot wrong. They may have only had the, I think it was 5th most amount of laps completed, but you know, it was so smooth, there didn't seem to be any problems for them. Again, they topped the timesheets practically every other day. It was really good running from them. Just a solid car throughout, you know, high speed, low speed, race pace, qualifying pace. It seems to be, again, an all-rounder. So it'd be a challenge for anyone to topple them this year. But, you know, you can't read too much into testing. This is all speculation, of course. But it seems that no one's going to be able to rock the Red Bull boat this year. I've already touched on one of the surprises of testing, which is McLaren's poor time. Again, similar to last year, they've had issues, particularly around the front of the car, with the brakes. This year, more so those brake / wheel brows, whatever you want to call them, and the strength of them, which is concerning. Does that mean it's a manufacturing issue and something needs to be addressed back at the factory? Is it that there's vibrations in the car that are causing them to brake very quickly? We don't know, but it certainly hampered their testing throughout the 3 days. In particular, Lando Norris getting the fewest amount of laps in of anyone across the 3 days. So yeah, a lot of people have them way down the bottom of the field in terms of a pecking order. And while I think they'll start slowly, I do think they'll bounce back over the course of the season. I mean, if you look at last year, the issues this year don't seem to be as severe as last year's ones, which were more brake cooling. And I mean, you look at where they finished in Bahrain last year, it was, I think, 13th and 14th. and then they end up finishing, 5th in the championship, fighting for 4th in the championship for constructors. So I do think they'll bounce back. I don't think they'll be down at the bottom for the entirety of the season, but it will be a question of one, how long it takes for them to bounce back, and two, how far it puts them behind in the development race. Another surprise, and this time a good one, Aston Martin. They seem to have got it together, especially in the race pace of the car. It seems to be one of the strongest on the field. The couple of people sort of even saying that they might be even challenging either Mercedes for 3rd. A couple people even saying challenging Ferrari for 2nd in the championship. Again, not quite reaching those Red Bull heights, but if they've improved that much over the winter, it'll be something to be seen for sure. As I touched on, the race pace was something that was very impressive. Alonso's times were consistently high up the time board over the course of the 3 days. Obviously, Felipe Drugovich had to come in to sub for Lance Stroll after his cycling accident, so you can never quite tell the full pace of a car when it's a rookie. The word is still out on whether or not Lance will be racing in Bahrain. I understand he's going to be having a FIA medical test to see if he's fit for the race, and if he's not, Felipe will be standing in. But overall, it seemed to be quite a good test pace-wise for the Silverstone-based team. Only one major issue, it seemed to be an electrical issue on day 1 with Felipe. They didn't do the most amount of running, but again, it seemed to be consistent and consistently good. Mercedes are probably the biggest question mark coming out of testing, either them or perhaps Alpine, but I'll start with Mercedes. They seem to be a bit all over the place, we all thought, well, a good chunk of us thought, that they'd be carrying last year's momentum through to this year, winning races towards the end of the year, and they'd have a good start to this. But testing, they didn't really seem to be anywhere. Up and down the timesheets from day to day, and issues with the car changing from day to day as well. Whereas other cars seem to improve in areas, them and, well, McLaren as well, seem to be sort of standing still in a lot of the measured aspects, or what you can measure when it comes to testing, high speed, low speed corners, race pace, qualifying pace, all of that stuff, looking at the times and kind of guessing what runs each team were doing. They just didn't seem to be improving from day 1, so it's tricky to kind of gauge where they are. Were they sandbagging as they have done in previous years, hiding their performance before coming out 5 seconds ahead of everyone in Q3 this weekend? Difficult to place them. Alpine, also the same. It was a team that we were expecting big things from. Last year they managed to pull themselves up and beat McLaren to 4th in the championship, so it looked like the momentum was there, but again, it seems there's a question mark behind the car. Can it perform? In testing, no. But when it comes to the race, will we all be proven wrong? That's the question. Those then are my key takeaways from testing this year. Not long to go now until the first race in Bahrain. In fact, at time of recording, it's the 1st of March, so it's this weekend. So yeah, we'll finally be able to see who's where in terms of a pecking order, and I look forward to it. Thank you for watching and listening. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and like the video if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.